There we go. Okay. Well, if you keep that passage open, as I'm sure we always do, Psalm 24, I wanted to try and answer the question, how are we going to handle the next few dark winter months? As people say, winter is coming. So I wonder, how do you handle the winter? Maybe you love it. Maybe you wrap up warm. You have all your sheepskin rugs, keeping your toes nice and cozy. Maybe you have a nice big log fire roaring. Maybe you're someone who loves the winter and enjoys that cozy feeling, enjoys making chutneys with all the leftover things from the garden, or laying down some nice new mincemeat that you created for those mince pies at Christmas time. Maybe you're a keen gardener and you love the feeling of just stripping away all of the leftover leaves and detritus in the garden and putting in the bulbs and looking forward to them spring up in the spring. Maybe you're somebody who's really not looking forward to the coming months. Maybe it's full of uncertainty for you, especially in the present moment. Maybe it's an uncomfortable time for you. You feel the darkness, not just in shortened days, but kind of pressing in around you. Maybe you feel much colder and lonelier on all sorts of different levels. Well, I want to try and answer that question this evening. How are we going to handle these dark months and not just survive through them, but how can we thrive through these months? And not just by making chutneys and mincemeat and looking forward to the garden springing up in spring, but can we do something deeper? I think Psalm 24 is a psalm that really helps us to get through dark winter months as we, if you like, plant bulbs of truth, of God's truth, of theology deep into our hearts, and look forward to, in God's grace, him bringing them to fruition, not just in the spring, but in the next few days as things get darker and more difficult and lonelier and colder, whether we love the winter or not. Let's try and press 3 of these bulbs of truth into our hearts and pray that God would give growth to them. And so 3 things I want us to see this evening. It's always 3, isn't it? But I'm sure there's a lot more, but 3 I want us to focus on. One is that we need to recognize who we are, or whose you are, we put it that way. Number 2 is to remember why we're here. So who am I? Why am I here? And the third one, slightly mysterious, is to see an open door. Press this open door into our hearts. So from verse 1, the earth is the Lord's and everything in it, the world and all who live in it. So what's our first truth? The first truth is that the earth belongs to the Lord. All of it belongs, every single last corner, not just the planet, but the people in particular. Did you see that? It's the all who dwell within the world, who God owns because he made us. He's our founder. If you've seen the film Toy Story, have you seen those children's animations? One of the central characters is a cowboy toy called Woody. And on the bottom of his shoes, if you have any grandchildren or children, or you yourselves have a prized possession, Woody toy, on pretty much all of the ones I've seen, they have a name written on the bottom of their shoes. Woody has the name of the boy who owns him, and written on the bottom of his shoes, the name Andy. Or when I went to school, I'm not sure if any of you had the same thing. My mother spent weeks and weeks before sending us off to school. I went to boarding school she spent weeks stitching name tags into every last piece of clothing, every pair of pants, every sock, every jumper, absolutely everything had a name badge sewed onto it. And so it is with us and God. Every cell of our bodies, every portion of our lives have his name penned in permanent marker onto them. Every cell of our being has his name, if you like, stitched into it. We belong to him. Why? Because he made us, because he's our builder, he's our founder. He's the one who crafted each one of us in our mother's wombs. Just a pause for a moment and soak that in and ask, do you realize that you were made? That you aren't just a product of a fluke equation of matter plus time plus chance, but you were made with a purpose. We've spent the last couple of centuries in the West anyway, with a seam ripper, trying to rip out every last memory of God's existence, every last memory of God's claim over our lives. If you like, trying to, as some nasty character in one of the films does, trying to paint over that name on our boots. But we are made, however much we try and deny it, however much our world tries to throw God out, we can't quite forget. And we really mustn't forget. Because the moment we forget whose we are and what we're here for, we tend to erode what we are as people. We tend to forget what humans are. But anyway, back to this. What do we do with that truth that God has made us? Well, if you're a Christian especially, you can rest in that truth. Because if he made us and made the world, if the world is all his, well, then nothing surprises him. Nothing is bigger than him, that it would throw him off balance or leave him incapable of dealing with it. We should rest in the truth that the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. Second thing we can do is receive that truth, receive the world that God has given to us with a grateful thank you. And as we receive it, we give it back to him in worship. Do you know that these lines are quoted in 1 Corinthians 10, where the portion where Paul's talking about meat and offered to idols and what you can eat and can't eat now as a Christian. And he says, look, the earth, the whole earth belongs to the Lord, absolutely all of it. He quotes this line and concludes that section by saying, so whatever you eat, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it all for the glory of God, because he made you. He made it all and he's given it to you. So enjoy it all and give it back to him. That's what we're made for. We are God's creations. We're his people with his names on us. So what do we do with this world that he's given to us? Well, we give it back to him. So you could ask a practical question like this. What do you have? What makes up your life? I have my life, my time, my family, my car, my sofa, the list is pretty much endless, isn't it? All these things God has given to us. But really this few lines should make us turn that round and say, no, these things aren't mine, they are his. So the question is, what will I do with his life, with his time that he's lent to me, with his people who he's lent to me as my family, with his car, with his money, with his sofa that happens to sit in my lounge? How do I use those things to reflect what God is like to the people around me? That's what it means to glorify God, to show what he's like to the world. How can I use these things for the good of others? Because that's what God does, isn't it? Or how can I use these things to love others and show generosity to others as God has shown generosity to me? How can I use them to help others and glorify him? You could put it like this. God has made us to live so that every single one of our footprints, every footprint I leave has his name on it. Like Woody, every footprint he leaves has Andy's name printed into it. But what about the footprints you leave as you walk through this life? Do they leave God's name or do they leave our own? There's more than just the first couple of lines. You see, we're not just supposed to worship and serve God, but we're supposed to seek him too. There's more to being a human than just bowing down to God. We're supposed to walk up to him. You were made not just to bow down, but to walk up. I wonder if you saw that in the next few lines. You were made to be at home with God, to ascend up into his home, to stand in his presence. It's the second thing I want to see tonight. This is really the high purpose of all humanity, not just to glorify God, not just to live for him, but to live with him too. That's the second big thing to see. Who am I? I belong to God. I was made and crafted by him. What am I here for? I'm here to live, to dwell, to be with him in his presence. That's in verse 3. Who shall ascend the hill of the Lord? Who shall stand in his holy place? This is what we're made for. This is, if you like, the Google images or Google Earth. Have you seen that before? The Google Earth picture of the whole globe and God's hands are all around it. And now we're zooming, we've clicked on a postcode and we're doing that kind of dizzying thing that Google Earth does, where it zooms in extremely quickly through the atmosphere and all the way down to your town or your house or your street. And here we're zooming into a mountain, a hill, onto Mount Zion, the temple, the mountain where the temple was built, where the city of Jerusalem was built. We're zooming into this holy place, to a place that's set apart, to the place where God's presence dwelt in the middle of his people. This is originally, it was a song for the dedication of the temple, where God's people were praying for God's presence to be with them. So this poem is saying that all of life is made by God, but all of life is made to be orientated around God, to be orbiting around him, so that all of the world is organized around this hill, this holy hill, this place which stands apart from anything else, which is special and particularly wonderful and the most beautiful thing of all in all of creation. Because, well, what's it like on the hill? Have a look at verse 5. It's full of blessing and righteousness. It's a hill of blessing, which is, well, what does that mean? It's the place where we have all that we most deeply and truly need. That's what it means to be blessed, isn't it? That God gives all that you most deeply and truly need. It's a place of vindication or of righteousness. What does that mean? Well, it's the place where you're completely seen and completely accepted. where you rightfully belong, where you're vindicated, where somehow whatever we've done in our lives, it's made righteous, and we're vindicated, we belong, we're justified in the language of the New Testament. And so this should be our aim, our ambition, for this thing to be the centerpiece of our lives. If you like, imagine a wedding table, a wedding table full of beautiful food and wonderful things, but the most important or most eye-catching thing on the table is the centerpiece, isn't it? Those flowers or whatever it is the bride and groom have decided to put in the centerpiece. Well, this hill, this place, God's presence, where blessing and righteousness reign, this is what should be the center of our lives. So how do you get there? How do you get into God's presence? Well, you climb the hill. That's what we see in the psalm, isn't it? It's not about whether you're, well, how do you climb the hill? That's the question. It's not about whether you're part of this family or part of that race, whether you're wealthy or not wealthy, or whether you're smart, or even whether you're particularly religious. How do you climb this hill? Well, it's all about character. It's about substance. It's about who you are and what you do. It's about who you are as a person. So let's have a look and see, what does it mean to climb the hill? Who gets to reach the top? This is in verse 4. Somebody who has clean hands. There's 4 things to look out for, by the way. Someone who has clean hands. That's talking about our actions, isn't it? Or particularly our actions in relation to other people. I think that our dealings with others are clean. We have clean hands and pure hearts. And those go together, don't they? Not just our outward actions, but our inward motivations, our inmost thoughts. Jesus put it like this: "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." So whoever is trying to climb this hill, well, whoever wants to get up this hill has to have clean hands and a pure heart, and also not have a misdirected life, and not have lying lips. What are those two? Lift up his soul to what is false, or doesn't worship idols. What does that mean? Well, an idol is something empty, something false, and our souls or our lives are all that we are. So this is about not living a misdirected life, because in the Bible, an idol is not just something that's made out of wood or stone, but it's anything that takes up our full concentration, anything that we put in the center of our lives that isn't God. It could be a longed for relationship that consumes all your desires and hopes. It could be the hungry pursuit of wealth, where you just never seem to have enough. It could be a desire for status, where you're always trying to get ahead of other people. You see, it's something you make the centerpiece of your life that isn't God. All of those things mean we are lifting our lives up. We're giving our whole selves to something that's created, something that's inside this world. But we already know from the beginning of the psalm that God made the whole world. So what is it then? And if we give our deepest commitments to something that isn't him, well, it's because there's only one person who has the right to that kind of commitment, and that's God. That's the Lord. You can only get into God's presence. You can only climb this mountain if your life is completely directed towards him. If the whole orientation of your life is upwards, is up that mountain, seeking him. There's another marker of this kind of a life. It's somebody who doesn't swear deceitfully, who doesn't lie, who doesn't speak falsely. And lo and behold, you've got 4 things there, which sort of summarize the whole human. And you could summarize them all like this: that you need to be somebody who seeks God. This is the generation, this is what the people are like, of those who get to make it up the mountain. They're the people who seek him, who seek the face of the God of Jacob. You can read Jacob's story in Genesis 32 later on, but it's a story about a man who wrestled with God, who wanted God's blessing, who was battling, if you like, to get up that hill into God's presence, and battling for God's presence and blessing to follow him all the days of his life. He wanted a taste of that mountaintop. He wanted God to be with him wherever he went. And so he wrestled with God. You could put it in Jesus's words, to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. That's what it means to climb the mountain. That's what it means to be somebody who's qualified to get up to the top. And if you can do that, if you can make it to the top of the mountain, well, what's your reward? It's verse 5, isn't it? He will receive blessing from the Lord and righteousness from the God of his salvation. What does it mean? It means that everything you ever needed, the deepest things that your heart desires, that you need as a person, God gives those to you in his blessing. And righteousness, you belong there. This is where you live, because you'd be holy as God is holy, separate and set apart and completely pure and perfect and beautiful. And so we get this, come to the little pause, this word Selah. I'm not sure exactly what it means, but there are always good opportunities to just pause and think. Maybe imagine if you were listening to this in the temple back in the day, someone goes off in a long guitar solo or I don't know, piano solo or something like that. And you just get to let the music wash over you for a moment and just think about what we've heard, what we've been singing. So what have we heard? What are these two big truth bulbs God is pressing into our hearts tonight? Before we get to the third one, well, truth number one is that God is God, isn't he? And I'm not. No, God is God. And so here's the question. Do I live like that's true? Is my heart pure and my hands clean? Do I live my life completely directed towards him, seeking him, wrestling for his goodness and presence? Do my lips and what I say prove that I believe that God is God and I'm not? That's truth number one. And then truth number two is this, that we're made for his presence, and that only people with clean hands and pure hearts can go up that hill into joy and blessing. So Selah, ponder for a moment. Do I have that? Clean hands, pure heart, and do I not have a misdirected life? Do I not have lying lips? What kind of a person am I? Am I that kind of person? Because David wasn't. David had blood on his hands. David's heart was all over the place in many ways. David's life was misdirected in many different ways. David's lips weren't always pure. So, I mean, he really wasn't this man. He never measured up. So what about me? What about my hands? What about what goes on in my mind? You could ask that question again. Does every footprint that I leave have his name on it or something else? Have I really been seeking him or only seeking the things that he can give to me? See, I know, I don't know about you, but I know in my life, I'm not the person that I want to be. I think especially I've seen that over these last few months, been disappointed with who I've become at parts of the pandemic. I've seen stuff in my life that I'm really not proud of. I've seen fear and selfishness and a desire for my own survival at the expense of other people sometimes, or at least attitudes like that. I've seen stuff in my life that I'm not proud of, but that in many ways I just don't know how to change. And that I seem to make progress in and then make 2 steps backwards the next moment. I keep telling myself, or want to tell myself, you're a good guy, deep down. But honestly, I don't know about you, but honestly, I often feel like a human wrecking ball. So left to ourselves, you see, we can't get up that hill, not on our own. David couldn't, who wrote this psalm, and I can't either. If you like, take that picture of walking up a hill, I often feel like I just get washed off by these waterfalls of temptation. Or I wander off onto different paths, giving our lives to empty things. I wonder if you can relate to that. Or we just get discouraged in the fog of doubts and fears, and we just sit down and are prone to give up. And there's many in the world who have so much doubt and who've never even heard that there is a path to the top of the mountain to know the God who is there. And then there's the ultimate enemy of all, which is death, that seems to cut short this journey before we have even started making progress. Left to ourselves, you see, we can't get up the hill. So who on earth can? And what on earth is the second half of this psalm doing here? Because it goes weird, doesn't it? It goes in a strange direction. Verse 7, lift up your heads, O gates, be lifted up, O ancient doors, that the King of glory may come in. Who is this King of glory? The Lord, strong and mighty. What's going on in this second part is that somebody has reached the top of the hill. Lift up your gates. Come on, open the doors. The watchers are saying, who is this? Who is this who's reached the top of the hill and who's calling us to open the doors, brought in kind of on a triumphal procession? Well, it's not David who's reached the top of the hill. It's a King of glory, but it's not David. He's worthy of honor and splendor. He's victorious, but it's not David. It's somebody weighty and significant. He's the King of glory. That's what glory means, isn't it? It's weight and significance. It's somebody of substance. It's talking about God. It's the Lord, mighty in battle. This is God himself walking up the hill. So this gets really strange, doesn't it? Because what on earth is God doing off the mountain that he would need to come home to his own top of his own mountain? And why is he down there that he's coming home? What is it that he was doing down there that now means he's coming back again in victory? You see, I think what's going on, and we know this if you've been around church, any length of time, you'll know that David isn't talking about himself. David is looking down the centuries to another king. And he's to become that he created with his own word, with his own hands, to become one of us. Philippians 2 puts it like this. And Jesus, who though he was in the form of God, didn't count equality with God something to be used to his own advantage, to be grasped, but emptied himself by taking the form of a servant, being born in the likeness of men. And being found in human form, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. That's the story of the middle of this psalm. The bit that David hasn't quite seen yet is that God has stepped down into this world. He's seen Jesus. From the moment of his birth, Jesus, he was walking up, climbing this mountain. He was treading a path, blazing a trail, fighting off every enemy that would keep us from reaching home. It's a strange thing, isn't it, that he is fighting, that he's a victorious king. Well, who on earth is he fighting? Who on earth is he fighting? Who on earth could ever stand against God, considering he's the one who made this whole world? What in this world could ever stand against him that we'd have to fight a battle to beat it off and defeat it? Well, it's not so much his enemies that he's fighting, but our enemies. So he's the one who's marching up this hill with a clean hand, with a pure heart, with clean hands. He's the one who's never lifted his soul to another. He's the one who's always had his life directed towards his Father. He's the one who's always speaking truth and life. And he's the one who's always been fighting for us. He's the one who was fighting off all of our enemies with his pure and good life, with his substance and weightiness. He was the one who took that to the cross and fought the ultimate battle over all of our greatest enemies. He was the one who went to his death to defeat all of them, to bring their rule to an end, to set us free to live with Jesus. Well, how does he do that? Well, you could flick back a couple of Psalms and read Psalm 22. There's a little series of 3 that fit really nicely together. Psalm 22 is the story of Jesus dying instead of us. The story of Jesus taking all of his beauty and perfection to a horrible cross and taking our sin on himself, taking our death on himself, and then 3 days later rising again to be our shepherd. That's what Psalm 23 is all about, to be our shepherd, the one who would keep us safe from every threat as he leads us towards green pastures, as he leads us up this mountain and into God's presence. He's the one who's defeated all of our enemies. The enemy sin has been defeated because now, because of the cross, we're forgiven. Our hands are cleaned. Our hearts are made new so that we can say no to temptation, so that there are stepping stones now in that torrent of temptation that flows down the mountain and threatens to sweep us away. We've been delivered from, as one person puts it, every unbreakable chain of evil habit. So it's possible for humans, and we will never get it perfectly right until we see Jesus face to face, but it's possible now for us to love God truly with our heart and soul and mind and strength. As our hearts are transformed by his love, he's defeated that enemy sin, and he's defeated death too. Death is defeated. I mean, we die, but we don't grieve about death as we used to before we knew Jesus. If you're a Christian, you know what this is like. There are plenty of tears at funerals that we've been to recently, I'm sure. But there's also, have you tasted it at Christian funerals? A rock solid hope and even joy in parts, as we know that it won't be long until we see that person again. As in, we won't be long until we literally see them again, right and bright and clothed in immortality, as Joni Eareckson Tada says. That's what victory is like, isn't it? That's victory, not just over sin, but over death and over Satan too. No more accusations, no more lies that hang over our heads. No need to believe Satan's lies anymore, that God doesn't really love us or that God doesn't really have our best interests at heart, because he's died for us. And what more could he do for us? You see, Jesus has won victory over all of those powers, over sin, over death, over Satan, over everything that could drag you from the mountain or keep you from starting that journey or cuts that journey short or washes you off or captures your heart to misdirect you and what lead you to wander away. Jesus has defeated all of those powers, all of those enemies that keep us from home. And then, after winning that battle, he went home. He ascended into heaven itself. And so if we kept reading that passage in Philippians 2, it says this: "Therefore, God has highly exalted him and bestowed on him the name that is above every name, so that at the name of Jesus, every knee should bow in heaven and on earth and under the earth, and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. So now Jesus has been raised up to live, to dwell in heaven, to be seated at God's right hand for us, in the presence of God, on our behalf. He did all of it for us. And so now, if you like, there's an anchor. That's how it speaks about it in the book of Hebrews. Jesus is an anchor for us, unmovably secure in heaven, and he throws his rope down to us and he ties it around us. In fact, he does better than that. He is the shepherd who comes down by his Spirit and walks into our lives and walks with us and brings us up the mountain. He's the one who says to each of us today, come and follow me. It's a narrow road. It'll be a rocky path, but there is a path now. It's possible. And so come to me, I'll tie my rope around you. I'll take my shepherd's crook and sweep you up in my arms and pull you up this mountain and bring you home. So 3 things that we need to do as we try and chew this over and have another little Selah moment and think back on what we've heard. Well, 3 things to do. Pack light. Come empty-handed. As you're walking up this mountain, it's easiest to walk when you pack light, isn't it? So come empty-handed and receive the blessing. That's what it says in verse 5, isn't it? He will receive blessing from the Lord and righteousness from the God of his salvation. The one who's made this world has given everything for us and gives it to us freely. So let's open our hands and receive blessing by God's grace, salvation that comes from this King of glory. Let's watch him march up victoriously up that hill as he tears through the curtain of God's presence and gains a place for his people now and forever. So pack light and bring all of our sins to him and give them to him, and then let's walk with him boldly. That's our second thing, up the mountain. Let's live boldly, because all authority, Jesus said, in the moment that he was being taken up into heaven, said that all authority on earth and heaven has been given to me. So the one who made this world, who has his hands around it, has his hands around you and is guiding you and keeping you through it all. So we can be confident, we can think strategically, we can be creative, we can know that our labors are not in vain as we live boldly, sharing this good news with others and walking up that mountain with him. And we can take heart. That's our third thing, to pack light, to live boldly, and to take heart, especially if you're suffering. If you're suffering on this mountain in temptation, if you're suffering with sickness and feeling like death is close, if you're suffering with sadness, if you're suffering with doubts and the fog of difficulties like that, well, we can know that there's solid hope and that Jesus is the guarantee of that there's no height nor depth that can separate us. Nothing can separate us from the love of God. So keep your eyes on him. But maybe you don't know him too well. Maybe you're listening along on YouTube, or you've just come along recently. Can I encourage you to come and know this Jesus for yourself and to come and see all that he's done, every enemy defeated, to take up a gospel, to go and read one of the stories of Jesus' life. Maybe you could start with Mark's gospel. Just Google that and read through the text of it and find Jesus for yourself. Maybe you could even pray honestly, a cheeky prayer, even if you don't really believe in God, and pray, God, I don't think that you're there, but if you are, then as I'm reading about this Jesus who claims to be your son, I don't think that you're there, but if you are, then please show yourself to me as I read about this man. So this week, let's remember who we are, made by God. Let's remember what we're here for, to dwell with him. And then let's remember all that he's done to make that happen and look victoriously to the Shepherd King, stay close to him as he leads us home through that open door into the presence of his Father and ours. Amen.